you welcome. Today's topic is space, time, and dimension. And perhaps we will bring to these subjects a different perspective than you have considered thus far. We will consider them separately and together, as is their due, and from as many perspectives as possible, those physical and scientific, and those metaphysical, and of the future sciences as yet to be named as well. To begin with, space. How does one define space? Your current terminology understands it as, yes, boundless. However, it is understood for the time being from a three-dimensional context, or to that extent. Therefore, we will join this dimensional aspect, sew it on later as we begin to consider it individually. Currently, space is considered as the extent by which objects and events occur, and it has a relative position and even a direction. So from this standpoint, space is a physical thing, something that can be conceived within the three linear dimensions. Again, dimensionally speaking, here, for current scientific purposes, they have been joined together within a physical science of the three linear dimensions. And modern physicists consider it as well, along with time, to be a four-dimensional continuum, which has now been called space-time. Not space and time, rather space-time. This is indeed an advance from what has been considered in the past. Not only is there now three dimensions physically speaking, but four. However, we will take this subject or science a little bit further than that. There are many different kinds of space, you see. Look at this universe, look at your world, and see the variety that is there. See how boundless that is. It is rare that there is one kind of thing, only one substance. And so it is the same with space. There are different kinds of space, including physical space and non-physical space, each one having their own properties or non-properties, as it would be. When space opposes itself, then properties and non-properties act together, creating windows of time or adventure, as you may call them. When something opposes itself, it does not mean that it is against itself. For instance, if you will take a common coin, on one side you have the face of the coin. On the other side, you have something its opposite, the opposite side of the coin. But the coin itself is not in opposition to itself. It simply has different faces. So it is the same with space. When it opposes itself, or when there is the other side, using simply one example of one other side, then that part of space is in opposition to itself, and so properties become non-properties. Not the same as an opposition, not the same as something that is against itself or at war with itself. This is important to know, for if you would apply it to something as simple as a personality as well, you would also see that you do not have opposites in your personality, or that you do not truly oppose yourself or others. There are simply windows into that understanding of the properties and the non-properties. This would be of grand-scale advantages to understand this in mediation in diplomacy, for one example. However, our topic for today is, again, space-time and dimension. Space then has a variety of different properties and non-properties, some that contribute to physical sciences, physics, a physical world, and all that is created in a physical world, a physical universe, for instance. However, because space has so many different properties, uses, you could almost call them, the possibilities are almost endless. I say to you almost endless because this current universe, our universe, is not an endless universe. However, from your perspective it would seem so, for it is unfathomable from your perspective, and even, I tell you, from my own as well. So it seems as if it would go on forever, and from a human perspective it would. Because long after humanity as you know it exists in this universe, and long after the earth as you know it is no more in its present form, this universe will still continue to be. Therefore, from both the human and the earth perspective, this universe, unfathomable, endless, appears also to be infinite, although I tell you that it is not. Space, therefore, can be conceived in a variety of different ways. Again, physical space that creates the position, the coordinates by which something will be or something can exist. Space, therefore, makes room. Space gets out of its own way and creates the unlimited potential, or allows itself to be occupied by something else, which is, after all, constitutes also space. If you have something as simple as a cube of space, and then you insert an object into that, a simple toaster, if you like, the space is still exactly the same amount of space that was in the cube, and now a toaster also exists there. To some degree, the toaster displaced the space that is there, and yet there is an intelligence within space that allowed that toaster to enter and to displace the space that is there. So space, transparent, invisible, and nothingness, is also conscious of the moment, of the higher purpose. Using the very simple example that we have just given, space, intelligent space, allowed and made room for a toaster to share that same cube of space. So space is emptiness, it is nothing, transparent, invisible, and yet it is also pure intelligence, because it is capable of becoming and knowing almost anything. So space is an aspect of pure intelligence as well. That nothingness, that dark sky that you see above you at night, is pure intelligence. Why do you believe that many stand gazing at the night sky? Gazing at the stars there, yes, perhaps speaking to them, dreaming to them and about them, but it is more than that as well. When one gazes at the night sky, one marvels at the existence of the nothing that is the all as well. Do not mistake that Gaia is now announcing that space is an equivalent to what you would call God. No, but it is a form of universal intelligence. It knows, it sees. It does not understand from the human perspective, but from the human potential, it does. So space is limitless to some degree. And yet, current science still disagrees over whether it is itself an entity or whether it is a relationship that bridges between entities, or if it forms part of a conceptual framework. Well, it is all of this and more. Not an entity per se, as you would imagine a person or a non-physical being entity. However, space is also beingness. So space, then, is pure potential. It is the hypothesis of the all. It makes all things possible and allows all things to be or to exist. Again, there are many different kinds of space. So beyond space, there is space-time, and there is non-space or void space. Void space you would understand as that which simply does not allow a world or a physical properties as you might know them. And so it would seem beyond the invisible or beyond the possible to you. Know that humanity's consciousness at this time imagines many different worlds, many variety of different worlds and beings, but only to a certain degree. At a certain point, humanity ceases to wonder and ceases to imagine, because it goes beyond the framework of all that humanity believes is possible. So humanity, as vast and as imaginative as it is, has a framework or a structure to which that consciousness surrounds. And it pushes the boundaries of this again and again and again. But at a certain point, something, a thought, will be beyond the bounds of that imagination, of all things that are possible. And an individual would more than likely say, well, that is quite impossible. Or even the most open-minded would say, well, it may be possible, but I cannot imagine it, or I cannot conceive it, which is exactly accurate. At a certain point, humanity cannot conceive beyond its own framework of the possible and the impossible. Well, space exists even beyond that. So beyond the framework of all things impossible, there is a kind of space that is unique and has different properties than those understood in all of your imaginations and in all of your sciences. Space has properties that can be given or created as the imagination will allow. Now, this imagination is not simply that which is given to fancy or that which is given to creativity or fantasy. It is truly the ability to image something that can be brought into being, whether it is a thought form, or a physical object. Space, therefore, does have structure. It has a framework, and that framework surrounds all things, both possible and impossible, and beyond that. So humanity's relationship to space and space-time may be quite unique and different than how another entity or being relates to space and space-time. For instance, again, a simple example, if we were to change humanity's longevity from approximately nearing 100 years to 900 years, space-time then, or the ability to travel elsewhere, takes on a different meaning. New possibilities are born. If humanity could exist well in a vacuum or without needing to breathe, well, again, existing in space has another concept already. So it is important to understand that other beings then have a different relationship with space, its use, its understanding than humanity does. So there are different kinds of space, or space can be found to react differently in different parts of the galaxy, in different quadrants of the universe. That is something that science has not quite wrapped itself around yet. Once it begins to define something as vast as space, it also begins to think that it must apply its same rules, or its same structure must apply to the entire universe. And that, while it is not in error, it is not fully understood. Humanity will come to that a bit later as it moves out into the variety and the grand adventures of space. Now we come to time, and how time relates to space as well. As time is currently understood now for humanity, it is, well, no more than a measuring system, something that is used to sequence events, whether they come to the past, the present, or the future. They allow the human mind to arrange its thoughts. Time, therefore, serves mind. It does not necessarily serve humanity. It serves the human mind. You see, for instance, I will tell you that it does not serve you, because if you truly understood how time works and how to re-coordinate time, you could, in essence, revisit a moment, change the events of that moment, restructure them within space-time, so that another outcome would come about. You see, but humanity's current thoughts do not allow that. They do allow you to revisit thoughts and memories according to the time sequences with which they took place, and to a certain degree you are able to remake your mind and your ideas of the experience, how it was, to reshape the structure of your memories in the present moment and going forward. But they do not currently allow you to truly change, for instance, an event itself. So time is a linear structure as far as humanity is concerned, and it allows also that the past, the present, and the future age you according to how time is arranged by the clock or the calendar. Again, if there were a different relevance, a different relationship to time, you could revisit yourself in a certain point in life, investigating and realizing, realigning many of the properties of that moment, so that, for instance, you could reinvigorate the body's cellular memory according to that moment or place in time, repattern the body to that place and time, and in essence rejuvenate the body as well. Now, there are sciences associated with this that humanity will come to. Again, still, it is fascinated at this point with the sciences, for instance, of cosmetic surgery to rejuvenate the look of the body's appearance. Humanity is still considering the physical properties of the body and how to realign these, without understanding that in a very simple and non-invasive way, one could visit the timeline associated with a certain aspect of health or well-being, restructure and realign the cellular body, the thoughts surrounding that. It is a way of redressing the entire structure of the body, and there will come a time when it will be able to do this. I tell you that no science is being withheld, either from this speaking or from those that research this. But for the time being, humanity's own structure says, oh, that sounds very interesting. I would very much like that. But I suppose that is very many years away. We have not come to that time yet, for now it is not quite possible. Or, even if it were possible, well, it seems as if that would be one of those unaffordable luxuries of life. So you see, simply I point out to you how the human mind currently circulates, dances upon a certain subject, wanting and craving it from a certain perspective, but not allowing it beyond certain boundaries, you see? So when we speak of the boundless, such as space and time, we must consider this subject from even beyond the parameters that you most know or those that you are most comfortable with. We must create, in essence, a discomfort for the mind, forcing the mind to create the next bridge and then the next bridge so that it will consider these thoughts and these subjects from different perspectives. Well then, as we continue to explore time, how does one work with time? Currently, we could easily say that it is working against you. Almost every day is a race against the clock. From the moment that you awaken, you are already considering what you must do during the day, what the day will include, what you will be able to do, not do, accomplish, set aside. The to-do list is born or continued every day. Matters not how many subjects or items you cross off your list, the list is full of endless items that seem to manifest one after the other. The moment you cross off one or two or three, more items are added to the list. So the list itself is endless. To some degree, it is endless because time is endless. And so it gives you an idea of being needed, an idea of being necessary to the planet. What you are doing has importance. It has relevance. It has continuity. And you segment it then day by day or based upon your work day or your hours in the ways that you do. And in this way, whether or not you find yourself important, the work itself or the chores that must be done have relevance and therefore importance. So how humanity relates to time just now, it does so because it seems to make life more important, this kind of way of measuring time. There are 8 or 10 or 12 hours in a workday. There are so many hours allocated to sleep, so many hours allocated to social time or physical movement, exercises, or to parenting, or to the movement of art or music, or how it will be. But time itself is segmented, it is sequenced into your day. Now, what if for an experiment we were to remove all concept of time from your day, all clocks, from all computers, for instance, from all of your toy gadgets that you guide yourself by in your day. If you had only day, sun, sky, clouds, stars to navigate your day by, do you think that your day would be much different than it is now? Pause for a moment and consider that. Yes or no? Well, I will tell you yes, because you are removing, even temporarily, the idea of how you measure time. You do not have the clock or the hour, the minute or the second, or even the day to guide yourself by. I do not say to you that this is an appropriate measure. I do not endorse stopping or changing or removing the clocks. But I do say to you that there are units of measure that are grander in design and much easier, smoother to live by than the hour of the day. If, for instance, upon this experiment that I have proposed, there were no clocks to guide your day, and let us say that we will time this experiment for one cycle of the moon, approximately 28 days or so. Do you think that you would become lazy and accomplish less without your to-do list or your clocks to tell you when it is time to waken or when it is time to sleep? I tell you, no. You would enter instead a cycle of natural time, which is a little bit different for each one, but not so very different. Because remember that humanity in many different ways is one. It is oneness. You are a family. You are a collective beingness. You are woven together into one. And so as unique as you are and as you imagine yourself to be, you are still part of the family of man. And within that uniqueness, you would respond to the framework in the way that is most suitable to you, which for the most part would also be suitable to the collective. You are, after all, part of the collective, not outside of that. So you would enter natural time. You would work at a perspective, at a pace that is appropriate for you. You would accomplish not more, not less, because it would be not the same measure. It would be a qualitative measure, not a quantitative measure. However, the quality of the moment would also increase the quantity of the moment, because time would not be less, it would be more. And that is the perspective that I wish to bring to you, is that you currently relate to time as if it were less. There is not enough time in the day. There is not enough hours in the day to do those things that need to be done. But you see, all those things that need to be done belong to quantitative time, where time is always short. Therefore, you will not be able to accomplish all those things, because every day there is not enough time to accomplish those things. So the idea that forms the foundation of that linear truth is that all of these things cannot be done, because today time is a little bit less, a little bit shorter. I am a little bit older, I am a little bit more tired. I am a little bit more under pressure, I am a little bit more stressed. There is a little bit less leisure or time to think or to be or to direct or to create or like that. And with that understanding, that, sweet ones, is why time, as a structure, as it currently stands now, does not serve you. Now, how might you break free from this? Well, one of the ways that is already currently underway, we have named earlier, which is to link time and space into what is known as space-time. Space, that which is boundless, we have said, endless according to human perspective, is tied, linked to time, which has a current understanding of being measured or sequenced. And so what has been linked together is a boundless, unlimited perspective that is little thought about, little understood in all of its perspective, and the one that is the most constrictive of all, a 24-hour day, a lifetime that includes only a certain amount of linear years each one counting to the less rather than to the more. In essence, what has been linked together then is, as we said earlier, opposition. Not opposites, for time and space are unique and not opposite of each other. But the perceptions of each one, the human perceptions of each one, are opposition. Space, unlimited and endless. Time, constricting and limited to the 24-hour day, the calendar, the clock, and like that. These two perceptions then linked together become space-time. It becomes a new unit of expression. In essence, a new, almost an entity, yes, a beingness. Space-time has its own beingness. And when you enter space-time, which is the fourth dimension, if you like, 3 plus 1, the 3 of linear time and space. Now you have a 4-dimensional perspective, and we will come to dimension in a little bit. However, a dimensional perspective is where we are moving toward, which is different than a linear perspective or even a perspective based upon what is known about time. Our topic today is space, time, and dimension. And if we link all these together, space, time, dimension, there is a projected goal in this understanding of how we unfold this. Now then, time as a sequence, when it is combined with space, which has unlimited possibility according to human potential or human design, now allows for more possibilities. Space-time allows for concepts that can be made physical or non-physical. Space-time, which is a 4th-dimensional understanding, having combined space and the properties of time, which even your human science considers to be the 4th dimension, is now a 4th-dimensional perspective with its own understandings. Time, from this perspective, is not as limited or not limited to the 24-hour day, and space becomes more accessible. It is more understandable when it is linked to time, which has at least the understanding of framework, of sequence. So from this perspective, space can be harnessed, it can be understood, it can be given structure. And it is within this structure that we earlier created a cube of space and placed a toaster in it. Space became accessible, almost handy, something that you can use, a tool that you can understand, something that you can move through, properties that you can use to your advantage. Again, as space becomes linked to time, that is exactly what it does for you. It gives to you new properties to consider, new advantages from which to offer yourself, and it will lead to other forms of travel, other inventions, and even how you hold the human body as its own perspective. The human body, then, can be changed, not simply exchanged one part for another, not simply rejuvenated simply to make it younger again or more beautiful or to your liking. It is, after all, a vehicle. The human body is a little like a seed pod that can sprout for many different seasons, that can bloom for a very long time when considered with more properties than those that govern time. if the human being is then introduced to the idea of space, time, early on, it can slow the aging process using the unlimited properties of space. And it can insert within the timescape, which is a little bit like a landscape, the variety of healthful environments that would allow the human body to thrive. This I give to you as an introduction then. What is stopping this currently is a little bit less of an understanding of this time, space, of the continuum, of how to link it, of how to enter it, and again, something as simple as the human mind and whether it believes it is possible or impossible for the average person to do so. You see, even those that believe that the impossible is possible will still, for the most part, say, well, yes, I believe in that. I believe it is possible for some. That there are some with gifted minds or scientific minds, and like that. So in order to embrace this concept in a greater way, humanity as a collective must come to this understanding. And you will see that the future and next generations are much more able to do so, particularly those that are being born now at the cusp of the new age, now as time begins to shift and change, now as the planet's own movement brings this about, ushering in a new idea or a new way for humanity to vision itself, envision itself, and project itself into the new age. That is what is needed at this point. It is what is taking place. There is nothing that you can do to accelerate this. It is already being accelerated. However, I bring this to your awareness because simply including these ideas, these thoughts into your general awareness has a certain accelerating property to it. Now then, let us explore dimension a little bit. Dimension is an idea as well. Dimension allows all things to exist in a different state of being, physical or non-physical, with their own unique properties here or there. So dimension, then, is an idea that space allows when there is opposition. If you like, the best way to bring about this thought is that somewhere between one side of the coin and the other, there is a threshold at which you cross from one to the other. You are not crossing over to the opposite or to its mirrored opposite. You find yourself not here and not there. Not here and not there are where all of the doorways to the dimension exist. And yes, they can be timed, they can be sequenced, which is how time comes into this perspective or this equation. There are indeed mathematical equations to all of this that will be understood and brought about as well. Dimension then exists somewhere between here and there. But where then? Where is that place? Well, again, dimension has place, placement, and that placement is relative. It is relative to the understanding of space. It is relative to the understanding of time. So in order to understand dimension, you must also then have a bit of an understanding of space and time. Space and time and dimension allow or usher in the fifth dimension. time being the fourth dimension, if you like. These are human words, not entirely Gaia's words. But for human understanding, then, the fifth dimension, then, is that which space and time locate dimension, or the point at which space and time consciously make room for or place themselves between here and there. That is where dimension is born, or where dimension exists. So linearly, you would find it very difficult to move from the third to the fourth to the fifth dimension, for it is not a progression, it is not a mathematical progression of hours or days. It is a geometric movement in which densities within dimensions dance with each other, gyrate within the energy of each other, which in turn creates the movement to the fifth dimension. The fifth dimension then exists, but it does not yet have a place. You come and go from there quite a bit. There are hours and moments during the day where you are lost for a moment. You are not sure where you are or where you have been or how you have expressed yourself. Much of that you have moved into another dimension, another way to understand yourself. For at least a little while you exist or existed elsewhere. But where? That you do not completely have the understanding of. For the moment that you would say to yourself, well, I believe I took myself to the ancient Alexandria library of Egypt, well, now you have added place to it, and you have added time to it. However, for the most part, you have added this time based upon your sequenced memories of the past, what the Alexandria library looked like way back in the past. Now, that understanding is a linear understanding. In that case, dimension was given a perspective, a place. So you used the physical dimensional perspective, the fifth dimension if you like, in order to very quickly take you to a different sequence of time. But you see, where you ended up or where you went in this example was back to the third dimensional experience of the past. In essence, you used the fifth dimension to travel to the third dimensional past. In this case, you would not have had to do this because your understandings of the third dimension and time would have allowed you to travel there. However, in a moment, in less than the blink of an eye, you had a dimensional experience out of time, or where time and space and dimension linked together as one allowed. The point here is that you are able to do this at times unconsciously, but you cannot yet do this consciously. The mind still says to you, that is impossible. I'm not sure if I did or didn't do that, or if indeed it was real. You see, the mind is very concerned with what is real and what is not real. But space, time, and dimension already understands or acknowledges a variety of different realities. It does not seek to determine which one is more real. It does not say that the one that can be physically viewed is more real than the one that is invisible. It does not say that the one that you remember from your dreamscape is more real, or the one that touches the lives of your loved ones is more real. You see, there is no such distinction. The human mind is concerned with distinctions of space, of time, and to some degree of dimension. And as long as the mind is overly concerned with its prove it to me in the physical here and now, the process is a little bit slowed, but only slowed from the physical perspective. Remember that there are a variety of different aspects of you. And as I address these words now, I am speaking to all of the different versions of you. To the physical being that now receives these words and must make the proper adjustments in technology in order to make them play, make them heard. But it is within my abilities as well to touch upon the more subtle frequencies that toggle the approaches of the mind, the landscape of the mind that is very flexible, extensive, expansive, those borderlands. The frequencies that I enable also touch upon these. Whether or not the human conceptual mind then understands these ideas or concepts, a part of you embraces them in gratitude. So be it, sweet ones. We address this for all the different aspects of you. Now, dimension, again, allows you not simply to be somewhere else at the same time, though indeed as space and time and dimension come together, the ability to locate yourself elsewhere is also very possible. But dimension allows you, as you are now, to realize yourself differently. In essence, to reinvent yourself moment by moment. If you can recognize that you exist in a certain state of ideas or consciousness or physicality in one reality, and that at the same time, based upon the laws that we have linked together here, that you also realize and recognize yourself with different properties, even different ideas and abilities in the same non-linear moment, in another perspective, dimensionally speaking, then perhaps we can acknowledge that there are different versions of you existing in this very moment, in this very time, in this very reality. Not different numbered yous. You will not multiply yourself physically and say, how many of me can I count? But there are different versions of what you are, different ideas. And if you can simply imagine that you can enter your wardrobe and dress yourself in a variety of different clothings, one for each different climate or culture, if you like, then it is the same way with how you will arrange yourself dimensionally. You would clothe yourself in thoughts and ideas and creative gestures that allow you to exist equally, different versions of you. In order for you to feel very unique, very individual at this time, it is easier for you to think of these other versions of you as separate from you. However, in this example, that does not serve you. They are not different other versions of you. Our earlier example of the coins, we are not speaking of other coins. There is only one coin. However, there are a variety of different dimensional from here to theirs that will take you to different coordinates within space and time. It is dimension that allows you to place yourself at almost any different coordinate where there is a different reality to express or experience. What are the benefits of what we have been speaking of then? For it is not for Gaia to simply bring to you a subject to consider without also bringing to you the benefit of the topic. Our gatherings are then not simply information-based to give the mind what to digest, but to give your entire being knowledge, wisdom to shape, so that you will shape your life into the adventure that is always at your fingertips. Your fingertips touch upon the next dimension, upon the next ideas, in some ways more beautifully than the mind does. For if the mind sees a dish, it already believes that it knows what the dish will feel like. It believes it knows what the tree's bark will feel like. But the fingertips do not. To the fingertips is the adventure of life itself, the new. And that is what dimension adds to space and time. It adds the creativity of not knowing exactly what the next new coordinate will bring. That is the purpose of our coming together today. Newness. The invisible newness that is not around the corner, not tomorrow, not beyond 2012 when this gateway or the next threshold is crossed, either by the understandings of those that follow the New Age philosophies or by those of scientific principles or religious backgrounds. Here is an opening of its own, belonging to no man and no one, no being, no teacher. The experience belongs only to its own truth, its own undertaking, its own potential. So space, time, and dimension create potential. Unlimited potential, at least from a human perspective. It is the gateway to the new, not the projected new, not the new that has been envisioned or foretold, the new. That which does not exist until it exists. That is what is truly new. Not something that replaces the old, something that never even existed until it came into existence. After all, that is how the universe came to be. It did not exist until it did. A very difficult concept for the human mind. Perhaps you can see that. If something does not exist, and then it does, it has moved from unmanifest or non-existence, non-existence, into that which is a possibility, which is the precursor to existence. So here, the new is a concept, then, that you can draw to you at any time. Your breath represents the new. It is not simply the next in a sequence, though it is that too. From that perspective, it can be numbered. You can number the breaths in your day. You can count them linearly. The breath also represents the boundlessness of space, for you may draw it in and expel it at your leisure, creating a very expansive space between all of the physical cells of your body. And space and time and breath, the new, also create the ability to experience dimension, the next, the new, the invisible, the indeterminate, the all possibility. So dimension then is not where you are going. It is not where you are headed. The fifth dimension is a natural philosophy that the beingness and that all that is part of this universe understands as nature itself. It is part of nature. It is part of the natural philosophy, which is, if you like, the study of the physical and non-physical universe that has been. Natural philosophy has always existed, and long before what you call modern science, it was the name that was given to all things. Natural philosophy existed before modern science, natural science, physics or metaphysics. Natural philosophy, then, allows for many different viewpoints of the universe and its structure, of dimension, and those aspects or events that occur in sequence or out of sequence. And in essence, as you begin to understand or return to natural philosophy, we will come to time travel, where you will go, what you will see, how to bring it about, how to hold the idea of time travel, how to enter that space of consciousness. So for the purpose of this speaking, we have introduced to you then the linking together of space and time and dimension into one experiential philosophy that is natural to all being, that is natural for humanity, even if it is not as natural for the human mind to conceive of this. I remind you that you are a collective, that humanity exists in its present form because the idea of this present form has suited it for this long. But what if it no longer suits? What if a certain species, and now I do not speak of humanity, was threatened with extinction, for instance? How would it quickly adapt into something else? Do you believe this takes century upon century, hundreds of thousands of years? No, not necessarily. Once the new idea is born out of space and time and dimension, a new thought, a newness thought, something that previously had not been thought or considered or believed, adaptation happens very quickly, because science will follow the rule of thought to quickly make itself into the most appropriate thought or thing that the moment asks for. So creativity then. We have been speaking of creativity, how to create the next and the new, how to make of nothing something, how to make of an ending a beginning, how to take the new and next step, where to find it, how to conceive of it, how to outdo the last, how to invite the first. This has been our topic. And I will tell you that with this framework or with this foundation, we will then be able to launch into other topics, such as time travel, which I hope to bring to you upon another day. The moment has then been well served, for I have served both the mind and the heart, the past and the future, and the present with which to consider it. I bid you a very fond, loving, and eternal, infinite good day.